So last week we have already discussed on the four elements. We have discussed about the earth element and the wind element. Okay? So next is the fire element. Okay? Mm. So this fire element, it's just like the earth element and the wind element. It can be discerned in practical experience by means of its natural characteristic, the sabhava lakkhana. So, and its nature, eh, its natural characteristic or its nature is simply this nature of heat. Right? Mm. Mm. So, fire element is basically the nature of heat. Okay? Mm. So, when you're asked what is the fire element, so you can answer it's just the nature of the heat. Yeah. The heat itself is that's the fire element. Mm. Mm. And just like the earth element, this nature of heat is also relative. Okay, so not just heat, but heat and cold. Okay, so both heat and cold, they are also the nature of the fire element. Okay, so depends on the strength of the fire element. So if the fire element is strong, then you experience it as heat. Okay? But if it is weak, then you experience it as cold. Mm. Yeah, so that's why sometimes like some teachers, for example, Lady Sayadaw, they talk about two kinds of fire, hot fire and cold fire. Okay? So both can burn terribly. Okay? So hot fire, you know, when it burns, it can be very terrible. Okay? But coal fire also can burn just as terribly. Okay? For example, when you get what we call frostbite. Okay? So especially in very cold countries, when they go out and they do not uh, cover themselves properly, so when it's too cold, uh, the coal fire can burn. You get this frostbite. Yeah? You can even lose the fingers, lose the ears, and so on. Okay. Mm. So, so fire element basically, in practical experience, is the nature of heat and cold. Okay. Mm. So it relates to temperature. Yeah. So it's the element of temperature. Yeah. Mm. And this can be easily, fire element also can be easily discerned everywhere in our body. Okay. So both internally and also uh, on the surface of the skin. Okay, so it's a very simple quality, just heat and cold. So even a small child can understand this. Okay, so you don't need to think very hard. uh, so the moment the mind comes into contact with the object, uh, you can feel clearly its temperature. Okay, so it comes immediately to the mind. Very simple nature, heat and cold. Don't really need to think so hard. You don't have to think at all, in fact. Yeah? Mm. Mm. So in the uh, Mahapatipadopama Sutta, again, the discourse, the greater discourse on the simile of the elephant footprint. So once again, Venerable Sariputta, he listed out different kinds of internal fire element. Yeah? So there are four kinds of internal fire element. Okay? So the first one is the fire element which warms up the body, that heats up the body. Okay? So when we say heat up the body, because there's hot fire and then there's cold fire. uh, so you can also mean the fire element that cools down the body. Okay. Mm. So this is the fire element that causes the body uh, to become warm, hot, or cool. Mm. So we experience this fire element as the normal sensation of heat and cold in the body. Okay. So, for example, uh, in the hot afternoon. Okay. So nowadays the afternoon is very hot. So you're meditating in this Dhamma hall. You may feel waves of heat hitting the body. Okay. Mm. So as the heat wave keeps hitting the body again and again, so you can feel the body uh, becoming hotter and hotter. Mm. So you note this when it's prominent. You note this as heat, 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 heat. Yeah. Mm. So if you note carefully, your attention is very careful. Yeah, you note moment to moment. You may notice that the heat is not static. uh, it fluctuates in its intensity. Okay, so you note carefully. You may notice one is hot, then not so hot, hot, then not so hot, hot, not so hot. Or sometimes it become hotter, hot, then hotter, still hotter, hotter. uh, Or sometimes hot, then not so hot, not so hot, not so hot. Okay. Mm. So it fluctuates. Okay. Mm. So if your noting is very sharp and clear, precise, you may even discern uh, the momentary, moment to moment rise and fall of the nature of heat. You notice there's heat, and then you notice it disappear. Then another one, you notice it disappear, and so on. Okay? Mm. So yeah, yeah. But also coolness, and not just heat, coolness. Like in a cold morning, so nowadays in the early morning can be quite cold. Okay? So meditating here in the Dhamma hall, you may feel uh, waves of coolness hitting the body. Okay? Mm. So as it keeps hitting the body, you find the body becoming cold. So you note this coolness, coolness. Again, if you note carefully, you may notice that the coolness is not static; it fluctuates. Goes up, intensity fluctuates. May become colder and colder, uh, or colder and not so cold, colder, not so cold, and so on. Okay. Mm. So if you are really sharp and precise, you may even notice the momentary rise and fall of the coolness. Okay? Mm. Mm. And the body can also be warmed up by the internal bodily heat as well. Like in the early morning, even though it's cold outside, but if you wrap yourself up properly in a jacket or with a shawl, uh, after a while you may start to feel uh, sensation of warmness radiating out from the body. Okay? Mm. So, and you can also feel this uh, in the through the food and the drinks that you consume. Okay? Like if you drink hot water, uh, uh, so the moment the hot water enter into the mouth, it starts to feel the heat spreading inside the mouth. Okay? So when you swallow it, it spread into the throat and then down all the way to the belly, and then from there you may even spread. You may even feel it spreading through the body. Okay. Mm. So you can feel it in the food that you eat also. So like before breakfast, before you start eating, you may feel cold. Your body may feel cold. Some of you who are weak may even shiver. uh, So then after you start eating, after a few morsels of food, you may feel if your mind is sensitive and clear, you may feel the body starts to warm up a little bit. uh, So as you eat more and more, the body starts to become warmer and warmer. So by the end of the meal, you feel the body is warm and comfortable. Mm. So these are the fire element that warms up or cools down the body. This is the first type of internal fire element. Mm. The second kind of internal fire element is the fire element by which the body ages. So aging here also means growing, maturing. Okay? Mm. Yeah. So when usually we associate aging with very old people, right? So when let's say a small baby, we don't say he's aging. We say he's growing, he's maturing. Yeah, but it's just different words. Yeah, basically it's still aging, mm, growing old. So actually, you start aging the moment you are born. Okay? Start growing old. But anyway, so fire element is responsible uh, for growth and maturation of uh, material things. Mm. So our body can grow because of fire element, grow and mature. Plants can grow, fruits can ripen because of fire element. Okay? Mm. So by also gradually cause the aging and becoming older and older and older. Okay, so this is a slow process, process of slow decay uh, of the material body. Okay? Mm. So, and it's a very slow process. Okay? It's so slow that it's difficult to discern in our practice. Okay? So, it's slower than watching a paint dry. So, yeah. However, if you're mindful, so and if you're mindful and you're in tune with the changes in the body, you may be able to discern that year after year, due to the daily exposure to heat and cold that takes place and the gradual aging and breaking down of the physical body. Mm, mm. And externally also, this ability of fire to cause aging, maturing, it also cause food to be cooked. Okay? Mm. So, so when we cook food, uh, what we are essentially doing is that we are maturing the food by applying fire to it, applying heat to it. Okay? Mm. Mm. So you can experience something of this function of fire element in your experience. For example, when you go under the direct hot sun. Okay? So like when yogis are walking from the Dhamma hall to the dining hall for lunch. Okay? So if you don't carry an umbrella, then you walk under the direct hot sun. Then you can feel the, the sun directly on your skin. Mm. So when it becomes very hot, you can feel like your whole body is being cooked alive. Mm. Mm. So you at that time you observe carefully on the surface of your skin. And you feel as if there's thousands of microscopic teeth biting into the skin. Uh, mm. So mm, yeah. And you can feel this even not just when it's hot. Let's say you put your hand directly on a block of very cold ice. You observe carefully also, you can feel that the hand is being beaten. uh, Thousands of microscopic teeth biting into the hand. uh, mm, Yeah, so it's like being cooked. uh, mm. Then the third kind of internal fire element is that which uh, burns up the body. Yeah. Mm. So earlier we said the first one was what? The fire element that warms up the body. So this one is a more intense form of fire element. So not only does it warms up, uh, it burns the body. So this is a very excessive, intense form of fire element. Okay. Mm. So, so you experience this, for example, when you're suffering from high fever, when the body becomes so extremely hot, uh, that in your mind you yearn to jump into uh, a pool of ice. Mm. So in order to cool down the body, okay? So the body is like on fire. Mm. Mm. Yeah. This type of heat, intense heat, can also be produced by the mind. So chitta jarupa. Okay? So like when you have intense anger. So when anger is very intense, you can feel in your body the blood start to become hot. You start to sweat. You may even feel burning in the heart, pain in the heart. Okay? Mm. So anger is very extreme. This the heart burn can be so severe, the person may even die. Okay? Mm. Then externally, external heat can also burn up the body. Yeah? Like when you suffer from sunburn or, as we said just now, frostbite. Okay? Mm. So these are the fire element that burns up the body. A very extreme, intense form of fire element that burns up the body. And the last one is the fire element that causes the food that we eat, the drinks that we drink to become digested. So basically, this digestive heat. Okay? Mm. So, so you experience this, of course, when you're hungry, like early in the morning before breakfast or late in the evening, and you do not drink anything, so you may feel hungry. So at that time, you may feel um, burning sensation or a warm sensation in the stomach. Okay? Mm. So, so that is due to this type of heat. Right? So the digestive heat. Mm. So according to the commentaries, this digestive heat is kamajarupa, materiality, born of karma. Okay? Mm. So it's a result of karma. Mm. Mm. Yeah. So if this digestive heat is a result of unwholesome karma, uh, then it will be unbalanced. Okay, it's either too strong or too weak. Okay? So if the digestive heat is too strong, then it burns through all the food that you eat very, very fast. So because of this, you always feel hungry. uh, So now you eat 1 hour later, you feel hungry again. Okay? Mm. So on the other hand, if the digestive heat is too weak, then the food that you eat will not be well digested. Okay? So you may suffer from indigestion. And also because of this, also you cannot derive enough energy from the food that you eat. So you always feel weak, not enough energy. Yeah? Mm. So you also not be able to derive enough nutriment from the food that you eat. Okay, so over time, you may also suffer from malnourishment, and all other kinds of diseases may also arise due to this. Okay? Mm. Now, on the other hand, if this digestive heat is a result of a wholesome karma, then it will be well balanced. Okay? Not too strong, not too weak, uh, just the right degree. Okay? Then, uh, then the food that you eat will be digested, uh, digested evenly. Okay? Not too fast, not too slow. So then energy and nutriment will be released to the body at the right proportion. Okay? Uh, Then you feel healthy, energetic. Mm. Okay, so much about the fire element. Next, we talk about the water element. Mm. Mm. So, water element, just like the wind element, is not literally the water. Okay? So, in fact, it said that if you put your hand into the water, you cannot really feel the water element. Okay? So you put if your hand is in the water, you feel the temperature, right? Coolness or the warmness of the water. That is the fire element. Okay? You move your hand around in the water, and sometimes you feel the water pushing against your hand. That is the support from the wind element. Okay? You feel the softness of the water. That is the earth element. Okay? So, but you don't really feel the water. So, the water element, that is. Of course, you feel the water, right? But not the water element. Okay? Mm. So, what is the water element? It is there's two aspects of it. One is the nature of cohesion, like binding together. huh? Mm. So, like you add water to, let's say, flour. huh? So you don't add water to it, it's like all dispersed. So you add water to it, it lump together. So that's cohesion. Mm. Mm. The cohesion is when the water element is weak. So when it's strong, you feel the other aspect of it. uh, There's fluidity or dispersion. Okay? Mm. So, mm, yeah. So you can experience dispersion, for example, sometimes yogis report when they walking meditation, when they place the foot down on the floor, then they feel like The food like s- spread out. uh, so that's spreading out, the dispersion. That's the water element. Okay? Mm. And you feel you can experience this water element also when you feel tension in the body or when you feel relaxation in the body. Okay, so it ends up, it's like binding together. When it's relaxed, you feel it spread out, diffuse. uh, So, but often this experience of the water element here is overshadowed uh, by the more dominant element, uh, like the wind element or the earth element. Okay? So, mm, and so usually it's very difficult to discern this water element because it's one of the subtle materiality. Okay? Mm. So mm, you also feel it like when you feel stickiness. uh, um, so that is like cohesion, binding. Mm, yeah. Usually, water element is very subtle and difficult to discern because it's usually overshadowed uh, by the grosser element, wind element, earth element. Yeah. Mm. Yes. So these are the four elements. Mm. So the earth element is the nature. Remember, they are just physical nature. So earth element is a physical nature, hardness, softness, roughness, smoothness. Fire element, nature of heat and cold. Okay, so wind element is a nature of support, which accompanied by sensation such as pressure, pushing, pulling, tightness, tension, stiffness, movement. Okay? So water element, nature cohesion or dispersion or fluidity. Okay? Now, besides this nature, uh, so we experience the four elements through their nature. Okay, but besides this nature, we also experience them through what the commentary called their mode of appearance. Again, very big word, but what it simply means is the appearance of lightness or heaviness. Okay, mm. So lightness is more of the appearance of wind and the fire element. Okay, and heaviness is more of the earth and water element. So when you experience heaviness and lightness, for example, during the walking meditation or even the daily activities, yogis often feel a lot of lightness and heaviness in the body, in the foot. Okay? So these are the mode of appearance of these elements. Mm, mm, So these four elements, they can be discerned in every single part of the body. Okay? But in the beginning of your practice, in order to develop mindfulness and concentration. Okay? So you don't send the mind to every part of the body. Okay? So you learn to notice this element as they arise with the primary objects, such as rising, falling, or sitting, touching. In the walking meditation, you note the foot in while you're noting the footsteps, lifting, pushing, placing. And also in your daily activities, in the activities that they are doing, bending, stretching, turning, and so on. Okay. Mm. So, so for beginners, uh, usually at first, when you are noting this object, your attention will most likely fall on the concept of this object, like the form and shape, Like you're not rising, falling, you notice the form and shape of the abdomen, uh, or the direction of its movement, up and down, left or right, and so on, or its manner of movement, fast or slow, long or short. Okay. Mm. So even though you're able to uh, occasionally discern the natural characteristic of the element, especially after we have hear the explanation, yeah, of the characteristic of these elements. So you start to pay more attention to it, and you'll be able to begin to notice them in your experience. Okay. But for beginners, due to the force of habit, uh, your attention returns again and again to the concepts. Okay, in the beginning. Okay. Mm. So in the beginning, this is okay. uh, Because it's even the basic instruction instruct us to note like rising, falling, the abdomen, lifting, pushing, placing of the foot. These are concepts. Okay. So we start with concept. That's okay. Yeah? Mm. But through continuous, energetic, precise noting, gradually, the mindfulness and concentration develops, and then the mind becomes clearer and clearer. Okay. As this happens, you find your attention begin to shift more and more away from the concepts towards the natural characteristic of the elements. Okay. So, for example, noting the rising, falling. uh, At first, your attention falls on the concept up and down. Okay. But as your mindfulness concentration develops, attention begins, you begin to discern not only the form and shape and so on, right, of the rising, falling, but more and more you begin to discern clearly and distinctly with each noting the bare nature of the wind element, the sensation, pushing, pulling, tightness, tension, expansion, contraction, and so on. Mm. So as the mindfulness and concentration and clarity of mind develops, the attention uh, begins to move more and more towards bare nature of the elements and away from concepts. Yeah. Mm. Mm. So as the mind become more and more fixed on the bare nature of the elements gradually, uh, and the true nature of impermanence, suffering, and non-self will be discerned by the mind clearly. Mm. Now, of course, with the development of mindfulness, concentration, and the clarity of mind. Yeah, so the yogis not only discern the natural characteristic of the elements in the primary object, but even when you note the secondary object also, if it's a physical object, you will also be able, the mind will also be clear enough to discern this natural characteristic. Okay. Mm. So there come a time when with sufficient development of the mind, the noting mind. So every physical experience is noted, whether rising, falling, sitting, touching, pain, and so on. Uh, the yogi will only discern, every time you note, you only discern the bare nature of the elements, hardness, softness, heat, cold, roughness, tightness, tension, and so on. Okay? So every time you note, every single moment you note, as only bare nature of the elements. Okay? Mm. So then when this happened, the idea of a person tied up with the body will also disappear. Okay? So The yogi experience only bare nature of the elements, moment to moment to moment. Okay? So the idea of a person, which is a concept, completely disappear from the mind. Then there's only nature, only Dhamma. Mm. Mm. So in the Satipatthana Sutta, uh, when Buddha explained about the contemplation of the four elements, so he gave a simile of this experience. He said, just as though a skilled butcher or his apprentice had slaughtered a cow and was seated at the crossroads with the cow cut up into pieces. eh, So too, a bhikkhu reviews this same body, however it is placed, however it is disposed by way of the elements. Thus, in this body, there are the earth element, the water element, fire element, and the wind element. Okay? Mm. So, now what does this simile means? So, so here Buddha talk about the butcher. Okay, now before the butcher slaughtered the cow, he looked at the cow. In his mind, he still have the perception idea. This is the cow, right? Mm. So even after he has slaughtered the cow, uh, before he has cut up the cow into pieces, he look at it, it's still the cow. Okay? Mm. So, but after that, so after he slaughtered the cow, he has to sell, right? So in those days, they bring it to they say here, crossroads. Crossroads is the busiest part of the town. It's where the market is. Okay, so you bring it there to be sold. So before you can sell it, you cut it up into pieces, right? Yeah. So once it's cut it up into pieces, when you look at it, it's just pieces of meat. huh? Right? So the idea of a cow no longer arise. Okay? So similarly, a yogi, so you look at the body, when you look clearly, it's like you're dissecting the cow, cutting up into pieces, huh? Just elements. This hardness, softness, heat, cold, and so on. Okay, so it's like you're cutting up the body into just elements. So when you cut it up, you see again and again. Every moment you look at it, it's just element. huh? There no longer is a perception of a person. Okay? Before you begin meditation, you look at this body, you feel there's a person here. You associate this body with a person. Okay? The idea of a person. But once you review the body, you meditate on it and you discern just the nature of the elements. See? And the perception of the element is clear. Moment to moment, you see just elements, just nature. Huh? So the idea of a person disappear, just like for the butcher, the idea of a cow disappear. Okay? Mm. Mm. So this comes under Kāyanupassanā. Okay. Mm. Now, of course, the yogi don't stop only at the perception of the nature of the element. Okay. So once the perception of the element is clear, no longer a perception of a person, and you continue to note this nature of the elements moment to moment until you can see the process of change in these elements. Until you can see that each element arising, disappearing, moment to moment. Okay? And from there, you can discern the nature of impermanent, suffering and non-self. Yeah, we stop here today.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namaskara.